Sony was first hit with a cyber hack at the end of last month. Earlier this week, the same group of hackers alluded to the terror events of September 11th, warning that the world will be, quote, full of fear on the exact time and place of the interview's premiere.
America's on its heels because of a movie. A nation has to be very concerned about where we're going with regard to fighting a cyber war. And the president has plenty to answer for when he meets the media and the American people this afternoon at 1:30 Eastern Time. Welcome back to MidPoint. Former senior intelligence officer, now senior fellow with both the London Center for Policy Research and the Center for Advanced Defense Studies, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer joins us. Lieutenant Colonel, always a pleasure to see you, my friend.
Thanks, Ed. Good to be on. Thank you.
Here we go from the FBI. Similarities in specific lines of code, encryption algorithms, data deletion methods, compromised networks. Enough information to conclude that the North Korean government is responsible for these actions. I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to just go, really, Professor Obvious? Thank you so much for helping us this. But if we look at this, isn't that got to be the reaction here, Tony, if you're in the intelligence community? We have known this is coming for a long time, and despite the fact that this is an individual company here, we still were not ready from a government and an administration standpoint to fight the cyber war.
Right, and let's be clear, this is beyond cyber, this is information operations, because Ed, what you just alluded to in the beginning about the 9/11 attack, they can't do that, but they can thereby basically using what we call asymmetric warfare, forcing Sony to do what they did, which is basically cave. This has been going on for a long time, and I disagree with Newt Gingrich. Newt made a comment, I think, 2 days ago about this is our first cyber war loss. Look, this cyber war has been going on for a long time. This is not the first battle. Most of it's been conducted in the dark. Trust me, there's a lot of stuff been going on for the past 15 years. This is not new. With that said, this government, the current administration, has no clue what to do. There's layers of capacity and capability. We have, for better or for worse, some of the most sophisticated cyber capabilities today. Friends of mine have been going back and forth with me on this for the last few days, and it's laughable because we've been fighting this war for over a decade, yet everybody else is just now discovering.
Then let me interrupt you there for a second, Tony. Ask this then: why do we then not attack?
Because there's policy issues, not capability issues. And that's one of the ironic things here. And it goes to the politics of the situation. This administration is reluctant to actually organize itself in any effective way to be able to defend the country. This is beyond perception. It's the way they act. They know. The White House knows the capabilities we have. We're working right now with the U.S. Army War College to put together a cyber sovereignty seminar. Much of what exists regarding the lack of response is because there's a lack of understanding by the political class. We operators, we who have been working this for the past 15, almost 20 years, understand well what the issues are. The problem is this: nobody cares to really define this space that is not physical, and people have a hard time wrapping their mind around the fact, Ed, that cyberspace is actually an environment we have to operate within. Arguably, the Army actually wants to operate within cyberspace as it would in the real world, and they've gotten a great deal of resistance by proposing that.
Then let's discuss two things here. An intel report that says North Korea has planned attacks on U.S. nuclear plants. Also, a report from the NSA that says China and one or two other countries have the ability to launch a cyber attack that could shut down the entire U.S. power grid and other critical infrastructures. From the people that you talk to, from your personal knowledge, whether it's China or North Korea, whomever, who decided one day, let's put this to work right now, within 24 or 48 hours, could they effectively shut us down if they wanted to?
There's no doubt, Ed, that they've done extensive reconnaissance of our cyber systems to include SCADA, Supervisor Control of Data Acquisition, which are the controls which govern power to include the nuclear industry. There's no doubt. Could they do offensive operations to shut those things down? No doubt they could. There's things that they've done that we haven't even detected yet, and the answer is yes. With that said, notably, it would be for limited duration. As much as they could do it, I think it would be traced back, as we'd trace this back to North Korea. And there are options right now that are being developed regarding a physical response, a non-cyber response to a cyber attack. That's one of the doctrinal things.
What would that be, Tony? What would that be, the non-cyber response?
It could be physical attack within the spectrum of information operations. This is the larger category that cyber belongs within. Information operations can include everything from a physical assassination of a single leader, targeting leaders, to a nuclear weapons use. It's all about how you wish to influence the thinking of your adversary. Information. It's all about information. This was the doctrine we developed in the 90s when we were going into the early 2000s, which really got off track because of the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. And the Chinese now picked it up. So we have to look at the current situation, Ed, as a complete spectrum of response options. We cannot simply think that because a cyber attack comes and does damage, we have to go back with cyber. We don't. Let's look at Sony for an example. Sony has lost millions of dollars. If anybody else put a bomb into the Sony theater or the Sony facility in California and blew it up and caused millions of dollars of damage, we would do a physical response, a bomb in, a bomb out. So now we have a virtual loss of millions of dollars. There's nothing says within the rules of land warfare that we have to go back with a cyber attack. We have to have other options. And this is where the administration is completely missing the boat about trying to integrate cyber and cyber responses within our overall military doctrine.
Tony, 60 seconds left here.
Sure.
Spin to ISIS and Kurdish forces.
Yeah.
They have recaptured a big piece of territory from ISIS, opening a path from the Kurdish region to Mount Sinjar in the west. How big a win is this?
Oh, significant, very significant by the fact that they've still been fighting with one hand tied behind their back. We have not been giving them the level and quantity of support they actually do need. And for us, plus, Ed, you saw the Pentagon announced 2 days ago that we've done, I think the number is 1,361 airstrikes over the last 6 months. That's nothing. We should have done that in 2 weeks. So I think we need to do more. The Kurds can do more, and we should get behind them. Right now, there's the effort to train about 12 brigades, 4 Kurdish, 8 Iraqi regulars. I think we ought to focus on the Kurds first before we focus on the rest of Iraq.
And of course, we'll wait and see what happens and see when and if American
Sure.
forces start to really become involved at this point. Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, always a pleasure, my friend. If we don't get a chance to talk, Merry Christmas to you and your family.
Merry Christmas to you too. Thanks,
All
Ed.
right, take care. All one has to do in order to get a cushy government job is pass the president's message in the media. Your payoff is guaranteed. It's one of several items we'll broach with Joe Concha from Mediaite right after the break. But let's also remind you, the president is scheduled to have his end-of-the-year press conference today, 1:30 Eastern Time, where North Korea will certainly be first and foremost on the plate. We will carry that speech and the following questions live right here on MidPoint and on Newsmax. Stay tuned. We're right back.